Hello everyone, and this is Daniel back to do another live stream. Thank you for coming back to watching these videos over and over. I'll just wait a few minutes for people to join, and until then let me explain to you what exactly we're going to be doing today. So today's live stream is a little bit different from my past couple of live streams. So in this particular stream, we'll be experimenting with baking normal maps for cloths. And so we'll be using Marvelous Designer to create a little bit of a test subject. We'll be creating some pieces of cloth that we can work with, and we will then continue to retopologize that geometry in Blender and go ahead and bake some maps for that. We might be able to explore a couple of things around that, but basically that will be the content for today's stream. It's also for taking a little bit of a break from the character project because I've been running into some issues where I couldn't make much progress. So for today, I'll be learning some new techniques that I researched about recently. So let's hope that I do not run into connectivity issues. Let me know if you can see me, by the way. Is everything alright with the stream? I see people are joining, so just give me a comment if everything works fine. And I'll mention again what we're going to be doing today, but just let me know. Perfect, so you can see the stream. Alright, well then, so what I'm going to do first of all here is just make some basic geometry that we can work with in Marvelous Designer. And hey Heel, thanks for coming back. So the reason why I haven't been streaming actually the past couple of days is that I think I've been working a bit too much these days. Like, it's very hard to realize really, because artists are like full of passion and like they want to continue and work harder, and they need to become the best, and there's so much pressure. So I was like working so many hours every day, but it became quite tough. And luckily, well, I didn't really realize on time, so it was quite tough for me for a couple of days. But now I'm through it, I'm over it, and I realized I shouldn't be working that much, so I'll be taking more breaks in the future so that it doesn't happen again. And just going to try to take it a bit easier while doing it still constantly. One interesting thing that I read about while kind of looking into it a little bit was that there is like two kinds of passion. There is like how do you pronounce it? Obsessive passion and harmonic passion, where like the first one is you can say a passion where like you just continue working even if you feel pain or something, where the other one is well balanced in that sense. And so wait, give me a second just to open the other software, otherwise I only progress. And so yeah, basically the point is that it's very important to keep a good balance and to do other things, even though I wish I could continue doing 3D for many hours every day to get better, but like it's not very healthy probably. Anyways, for everybody new who joined, today's stream will be about learning some new techniques with Marvelous Designer, creating very quickly just a piece of cloth, going back into Blender, figuring out how to properly retopologize complex meshes that were generated in Marvelous Designer, and then baking normal maps for that, and we'll see what we can do in addition to that even. So it will be really exciting and very educative, I think, for everybody watching, so let's get into it. And thanks for the comments there. Chu is saying you don't have to be the best, you just have to stand out. And believe me, actually stand out. Well, thanks for that compliment. Well, okay, I should be agreeing, because like I'm trying to improve my work-life balance here, but it's still tough because like if you want a job in the industry, of course you have to be like one of the best people. They're not going to hire you if you're not good enough, so I guess it's still important if you want a job, that is, to be one of the best, but I think probably it's not a good idea to force yourself through the process within a very short amount of time. It's more important to keep the passion uh, balanced and to work your way through it over the time. It may be difficult to where's my object? Oh, it's tiny. It may be difficult to support your life because you won't be able to get an income with that passion for the first 10 years maybe, but well, it's still better that if you can find a job that kind of supports you on the side and keep learning well, next to it basically. So that was kind of a new experience for me as well, to think about it in this completely different way from what I've been thinking so far. And I'm definitely not going to give up in any way. I'm, as usual, more motivated than ever to continue. However, well, just trying to keep it a bit more healthy anyways. So, yeah, let's get now into our topic. I think that's enough side story there. So basically, the first thing I want to do is, as I said, for today we want to create a little piece of cloth here in Marvelous Designer. We will take the generated cloth back into Blender, and we'll try to retopologize it and to bake normal maps. And we'll be using lots of new advanced techniques. So we'll be using cages, normal map baking cages, and we'll be retopologizing a bit different from my approach so far, and I'll explain like the benefits and differences between what I learned in the couple of days that I kind of looked into this topic, and hopefully you will enjoy that. So in Marvelous Designer here, I really don't want to make anything great really. Everything I want from Marvelous Designer is a piece of cloth that is complex enough to be a realistic case for like what it could be like if you make a cloth and you bring it into your character and retopologize it. But I want to keep it small enough so that we can work through this within a short amount of time. It should be a test of like 1 hour or 2, so let's go for it. And yeah, sure, Chewy, thanks for joining the stream. Definitely come back to see the recording if you're interested in the topic, so thanks for joining so far. So here we go. I'm just copying this sheet on both sides so that we don't have to struggle with kind of getting this to wrap around our objects, and we'll be sewing it together as we usually do on both sides. And so this will be just a very simple it's gonna fall down, of course. It's a simple object. So in order to avoid this from falling down, of course we need to make it a little bit tighter, which we can do like this. Oh, we missed it. Let's go a bit more closer together. There we go. And now I can, it's a bit almost too tight, I would say. And then I will give it a few wrinkles. So yeah, that looks nice now. Now I can take it and like pull it down or up a little bit. And we're just going to give it a few wrinkles here and there. And I'm going to increase the simulation resolution as well to really give us good conditions for our kind of work from here on. So let's see if we can do this. I'm just going to select both pieces of fabric here. I'll go into the simulation properties and change the particle distance size to 5. Since we really don't have much geometry here, it really shouldn't slow down our simulation too much. If this was a whole character with like all accessories and a bunch of fabrics here, it would be a lot more difficult. Actually, let's make it shorter as well. I'm struggling here with keeping the cloth on this piece of geometry, but we can as well just make it shorter. That should help us too. And so let's see. So I want a cylinder with a few folds. That's the main thing really. I'm thinking about a way how I can do that. How about we introduce some additional complexity by creating a seam? We can create an internal line here, and we'll just act as if there was like some sort of rubber inside that's kind of stretching or like compressing this fabric, in other words. So I can put this line here, and if I'm right, there should be a way to how do you do this? Elastic on ratio 80%, for example, and you can see now it's kind of compressing this part, right? So this is going to be tough already. I can tell right away. Is this too much, or should we just go with it? Well, I guess it's realistic though. Let's see. Oh, so it's doing it on both sides. All right, so that's fine with me. Let's move this maybe to the front or something. No, I guess it was fine. Let's just go turn this on again. All right. So that looks good to me then. We don't really need to do much more about this. It's really complex, as you can see, and it will be a challenge to retopologize this, so it will be a good learning effect. But it looks doable for sure, and for the last step, I'm just going to lower the particle distance to something really small, because just for this one test in particular, I want everything to be really perfect. I don't want to be struggling with like not enough resolution on my simulation. So let's just give it a try and see how our result turns out. And in the meantime, while this is simulating for a few moments, how is everyone doing? I see many people joined. Just for everybody who hasn't had a chance to listen to it yet, in today's stream we will be looking into how to properly retopologize cloth and how to bake proper normal maps for that. This is really challenging for character modeling, in my opinion. It's really difficult to get a hang of the techniques and to get it all clean, and so we want to do a little like experiment outside of a big complex project such as a character. And so I'm preparing a little demo scene here. Hey MG, welcome back. So again, sorry for not having been able to stream about my character projects these days. I kind of mentioned the reasons before. If you're interested, just skip a few minutes back to the beginning of the stream. Then you can listen to it. But yeah, again, today will be a little bit of an experiment, and we'll be using this knowledge later on to continue the project Arata. And I'm really I really want to share a bit more about this, about my motivation behind Project Arata actually. Like, the reason why I'm so excited about this is because Project Arata is really not a particular idea at this point, but it is like, how can I say this? A place for me to continue growing a world in which my characters have a meaning. And so I really hope that this first character that we're currently making is just well, the first in many, and that we can continue to sort of increase the complexity of the story, that we can continue to develop new characters, continue like events happening inside, and continue to develop either a game or like animation from it. Of course, everything just in a doable kind of range of things, but definitely wanting to make this a great demo project, and for everybody participating as well. Anybody who's willing to kind of contribute, it would be amazing to get everybody on board to contribute their talents, and so I'm really looking forward to that sort of thing. And here we go. I think we have a pretty good piece of fabric here. It has a fold on the back. It has very, very complex shapes on this side, and retopologizing this is definitely possible, but difficult. Let's do one more really challenging thing. I think this is still like well, we can all imagine that this is quite doable, but there is one last thing I want to add to make this a bit more challenging, which will be a bit more tough already. So we all know how difficult colors are. So let's try adding a color to this setup, and we will see if this is going to be doable for us or not, or where we run into issues. So I'm just going to add like one point here on this border so that we can not sew it directly into this like section, but kind of have it like this. So let's just align the lengths of the sides here. There we go. Should be here. Perfect. And then we can just mirror this part on the other side as we did previously. Mirror this pattern over here, and then we can sew it together. Oh, and I see it is it sewed? Yeah, it's sewed already together here. Let's sew it together on the other side, and we'll sew these two parts together. Wonderful. Colors are easy for you. Marvelous designer. Well, the difficulty, why I bring up colors as an example for difficulty here, is that we're going to bake normal maps here, and you know that you have to kind of project rays through the low poly surface. And actually, wait a second, before I let that simulate, let me make a crease here, turn around, so that should allow the color to flip around. Yeah, and so we won't be able to easily bake this. This is the main point. We're going to reduce the topology and bake it to a lower resolution. And a color is in this situation very horrible because, well, your piece of cloth is one-sided and this may not, and then you have like intersecting shapes, and like it's really quite tough. So let's give it a try. I just need this color to fold over. That's usually a bit difficult in Marvelous Designer. Let's see if it follows me. I did change the fold to be flipped, so it should want to flip, but you never know. Let's see. Let's go for this side. So I'm just curious, why do you say that colors are easy? What kind of background do you have in doing so? So the simulation is quite slow here. Right, I think I have no choice but to turn down the resolution for these two pieces once again, just to get the simulation correct. Wow, now we're going fast. Come on. Come on. It really doesn't want to. Don't fall down. Well, I got the color. I just need to put it back into position. Oh, no. Let's do it this way. Nice. We saved it. Alright, that looks good to me. Alright, now going back to really high resolution for my simulation to give it the final touches, and that will be the last step for Marvelous Designer, after which we'll be moving on to Blender to retopologize and to bake normal maps. So just give it a second to bake everything. Now, one thing that I'll be trying to do here to bake the normal maps properly is yeah, to use cages and see how that works out. And the color is actually really challenging. We could try to separate the geometry to bake these parts separately, but also I'm not entirely sure yet how I'm going to deal with the thickness of the cloth. Actually, I'm even thinking, let's see, it is really thin. How thick should we make this fabric? What if I make this 2 millimeters? I feel like this fabric should be a bit thicker. That should help us a little bit. Well, anyways. Yeah, definitely. A collar is actually multiple layers of fabric, as Heel says. So, how can we deal with that? Well, first of all, there is the question, do we want to simulate all of those layers? Or is it easier for us to simulate one layer and to artificially make it stiff? Secondly, we have to think about how do we want to retopologize it? Do we want to retopologize like everything inside out, or do we want to make it double-sided, or do we want to have a single side and kind of extrude from there? So a bit challenging, but let's see. So I think the simulation is done now. I'll give it a few more seconds. All right, good. So here's our fabric. This is going to be what we're going to retopologize today. So I'll be selecting all these parts, going to export, export selected. Actually, let's export the whole thing, including the character, like the avatar in Marvelous Designer, because then we don't have to reposition it in our scene. Export OBJ. You won't be able to see my export dialog, but I'm just what should we choose? Okay, I'm choosing thick here in the settings that you cannot see. I'm sorry for that. I am also going to choose we can choose between single object or multiple objects. Let's just go for single objects. We should be able to separate those easy later on anyways. Alright, and then I'll just save it and we'll see what we get. So now I'm going to switch back to Blender. Let me display Blender for you here. Let me see if it displays alright. Alright, should be fine. And now I will be importing this data that we exported. So it's an OBJ file, so I'm just going to go to this here and import my file. And so again, now our challenge, we have a high resolution piece of cloth, and you know, maybe you go into ZBrush and just add details and stuff like that. So let's just consider this to be the final piece of cloth that we're going to be working with. So let me put the origins to the geometry. Let's get the scene a bit cleaned up. Just center this whole thing. And separate this part. Can have this flat actually. Wow, what's going on here? This is really weird. How come? Let me look into this for a second. Alright, it had to do with auto smooth. Anyways, the way I like to do this is to use where is it, edge split here, just to make it smooth. Anyway, so we won't be needing really this lower body, inner object. But here is our best case scenario fabric. And now let's think about it for a second. In this case, because it's so accurate, I think we'll be even better off to just create a very nice retopologized mesh for one side of the surface, and then to give it thickness later on and to keep the same normal map for both sides pretty much. So I think I will go with that strategy. Or actually, no, I won't, because I want to consider this to be a game model, and in a game model you wouldn't have it double-sided. So we will be modeling only the double-sided features for this upper area, and we'll try to kind of end the mesh to where the visibility here ends, and we'll even go ahead and connect it with our cylinder mesh, because well, we wouldn't have to, but at least I'll make it insert or intersect through here so that there's no visibility through here. So, and like the problem is, if you look at the face from the back side, it will be invisible, and we won't avoid that by any means. So let's get started here. I'm going to start as usually by just adding some random geometry. I'll delete it all in edit mode anyways. And then when you want to start retopologizing, all you do basically is you press this magnet icon, which is the snapping tools. And here in the options for what you want to snap to, you go to face, because I want to snap all new vertices to any face that I'm clicking onto. So I can move it around, it will always snap to it now. I can switch this on and off with Shift Tab, and also while dragging, if I hold down Control, I can turn this on and off as well during my transformation. So that's how you use this one. And let's get a target, poly count target for us, so that we can have this a little bit of be a bit more realistic as a challenge. What do you guys think is a good amount of polygons for such a piece of cloth? I'll do my own little simulation here. Let's see. Well, in my opinion, for such a complex piece of cloth, up to 1,000 even should be fine. Maybe 1,000 to 1,500. Does that sound realistic? Well, it is a lot, but at the same time, I don't really think that game engines these days struggle that much with poly count anymore. And especially with characters, they will invest the necessary amounts of vertices. So if it's, let's say, a character gets maybe a budget of 10,000 or 15,000 vertices, then I can imagine that a piece of cloth that's kind of very detailed should be getting like 1,000 to 1,500. Hey Donnie. So 7. I think 7 is not quite enough, but thanks for the suggestion. Alright, so let's get into it. I'll be aiming for it, like the set 1,000 to 1,500 there. So I'll be starting with this edge in the back here, just because it's sort of a simple geometry to start with, and I will actually separate this piece into two objects. Yeah, this is what I was afraid of. I knew that it doesn't weld these points together, so let's do a remove double, and I just hope that it won't weld anything together here. Ah, perfect, we didn't have any issues. So now we can separate these two pieces into a separate file. And for now, I'm just going to separate object. And for now, let's hide it so that we can not get our mesh snap to that part. And by the way, once again, we'll be using normal map baking cages and cycles today to bake the normal map as professionally as possible. And I'll show you the reasons for why we have to do this as well. So let's get into it. So the way I approach this again is I take one point, I extrude it to the other side, and then I start subdividing. So I just want to keep it really low at the beginning so that I really, should I say, don't have to do all the extrusion like at once. I can simply subdivide a couple of times now and everything is already almost in place, so I can really speed up my workflow by doing so. And I'm just going to add here like an appropriate amount of vertices. And my approach, as it is different today, as I said before, will be that I won't keep this a cylindrical topology. I will be considering a lot the folds here, and I will be following the folds more over than the direction of the cylinder. So I was trying to force myself to keep this object cylindrical no matter what, like the polyflow, let's say. The polyflow I thought must be cylindrical, as for rigging it would be easier and the poly loops would be more accurate. But really, as it turns out, it's more important that you capture your geometry more accurately than having a clean polyflow, because retopology is supposed to reduce the polygons while capturing the shape as accurately as possible, and of course trying to avoid places where weird deformation can happen. So as long as we can achieve that, we're good. So here's my first edge, and let's first tackle the clean areas here. I'll go into this direction, and you see it's black here, so we just need to recalculate the normal, select everything and go Control N. That should turn it outside. And again, similarly as we did before, I'll first go a far distance away, as far as I want to stretch this kind of plane, and then I will go with subdivisions, and then I have all vertices almost in place, so I just need to reposition them. And so this is really where we figure out how detailed we want to get here. I think this is this is quite rough. Let's add another loop here. That was a bit too far off for me. So let's see, where is my point? Here it is. Let's select everything, snap it into place once, and just keep it on top of the surface. And so you see that this mesh is inside of our other mesh, and so we'll discuss later like what implications this has to baking normal maps, but this is very important to kind of just take note of. And so I see already that my polyflow is already unable to capture the details, so I will actually go ahead and delete this one here and start varying my polyflow to kind of accommodate the more complex topology that we have here. And so I create two kind of triangle shapes to start new polyflows from here. Let's see. It's a good way of doing this. One thing though I will try for sure is to keep this upper edge a continuous loop, so I might just go ahead and finish this loop now, because I will definitely keep this one circular, as there is a circular edge that I want to keep in a clean circular shape here. So let's go ahead and do that first. Maybe make sure that you don't get too bad intersections, like try to keep the intersection realistically, should I say, moderate, not too strong. And I'm afraid we'll have to go into more detail actually here with our points, but as long as it's quite clean, you can make big steps and you're fine here in this section in particular. So maybe this was too big of a step, so let's reduce the size here, and there we go with the first loop. Let's do the same edge on the top. And make sure to match the amount of polys that you have, the vertices that you have down here. And of course I should be sticking to these edges, so I will be adding one in between here as well. And let's continue over here. How do you guys spell retopology properly, actually? Like, no matter where I type it, it's always underlined red and no dictionaries accepting the word retopologizing. Is it just that you have to put a line in between re and topologizing? That it's not supposed to be one word? Is that what I'm getting wrong every time? Alright, so by the way, one little advice: if you select two edges and you have two continuous like poly chains here, you can just keep pressing F and it will continue to create faces. So that's pretty useful in retopology when it comes to Blender. And I keep kind of adjusting the position of my points because that will help us to like get an ideal optimal result. Alright then, so that's good for our first loop. Let's see. We should be doing the same thing on the lower end. Actually, let me copy this part and let me just duplicate it downwards to this place, as I want to keep it roughly the same amount of vertices, so we can just try starting with the same setup and delete and add wherever needed. So I'll just get it roughly into the position and then I'll select it and kind of get it to work here in this area. Somehow like this. And it looks like we'll be needing more vertices here, but let's give it a try first without. I mean, we're trying to reduce here, but I have a bit of a difficulty estimating how much we will really need at the end. Let's go from the other side for a moment. So this area here is really smooth, so this is a totally adequate amount of vertices for this part. Let's keep it on this side, maybe merge into here, and then let's give this side a bit more detail. Wonderful. Yeah, I guess you wouldn't find it in a dictionary then. I just feel bad every time I use a word and like it's underlined red. It's supposed to be all clean, but in 3D, whenever I type about 3D, something is always like underlined red, and nothing doesn't exist in a dictionary, so to speak. Alright, so we have matching numbers of words up and down. We'll probably be editing this again anyways. Wait a second. Oh, we're selecting this too. One thing that I'm not happy with though is that, yeah, okay, we added one here. Yeah, we should have an even amount of vertices. That's usually a good idea because otherwise you must end up with triangles in many cases. So I mean, it depends on the situation. It's better to keep it even. It's better manageable then. Alright, and so actually before doing this, let's just approach it from the other side now. Let's start here, for example, somewhere within, and just go for a clean topology for this certain area, and we'll work our way back and connect later on, instead of trying to grow our mesh from there. So this might be sometimes a bit more useful. And if this continues to stay black, even if you press Ctrl N, just click this button and it will flip it. So this would be kind of an ideal topology for this fold, for example. And so we'll be making use of these sort of geometries a lot today, and basically accommodate every fold properly. Let's see. And this strategy is actually also quite funny. Like, if you just want to continue extruding, but you can't make faces, like, here you go. Here's one strategy. It's a bit hard to fill though, so let's see, is there a good way? Doesn't seem like it. You have to select them all to make the faces then happen. Or you could maybe just go and fill these, and then you can select the whole thing and fill it at once. Well, that's another strategy. Well, there's many ways to kind of speed up your workflow, so kind of experiment with that. It's a bit fun as well. There we go. That's kind of one detail. And we'll kind of continue doing that, so hope you're not going to be too bored with that. Just bear with me. How much do we have to do here? Quite a bit. This might take an hour or so. Alright. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll be not talking too much because I want to save my energy. But if you have any questions, I'm definitely happy to answer, so just let me know. Why should I solve for that? Why did you give me a math question? I didn't mean that sort of question. Wait a second. What is x? You're actually making me think about this now. Can I do that in my head? I think that's... Wait a second. Wait. Oh, no thank you. I don't want to solve square functions now. Not in the mood for that, okay. Okay, let me stop that. I'm taking this serious. One feature I wish I had in Retopology in Blender is the ability to kind of move several vertices at once and to snap them individually. Is that possible? What if I take individual origins? No, it doesn't seem to be possible. So if anybody knows a way how to snap multiple vertices at once, please let me know. That would be amazing, because that's really what's missing to get a even more efficient workflow in Blender. Yeah, true. There are like paid add-ons that are good for retopology and shrink wrap. Unfortunately, the annoying thing is you can't like if you want to do shrink wrap for just one selection, you would have to go ahead and like get yourself what is it called here, vertex group, and then do the modifier only with a vertex group selection, and it's kind of like too many steps. It's just not efficient. It's quicker to just select the 3 points and to quickly kind of merge them, to quickly move them individually. So unless there is not 100 points at once, maybe it's just not worth it. And also projecting it from view is a bit difficult in that sense as well. It's always around one axis or nearest point. Oh, I just figured out we didn't snap these as well. Yeah, like having an automatic snap with newly generated vertices would be really nice. For example, if I make a loop cut here, if I don't move them all individually into place, they're all going to be like a little bit off position. So that's a bit of a downside to using Blender, and where Maya is a bit stronger in that sense, because Maya does support that sort of thing. Let's see if we can improve this part a little bit. Actually, no, I'm going a bit too much into detail here. Let's not go that much into detail. Just want to avoid kind of having all of this come into one point together at once. So how can I do that? Maybe I can just separate it. Let's give it another try. So here and here. Ah, well, it's fine. Let's just go for it. It's still, well, not the most beautiful solution, but it should do. And so now it's time to start connecting pieces. And so this is again a bit challenging because you have to match the poly count, of course, to get a clean result, and sort of match the direction as well. So I kind of want to have this go over here like this, and we're obviously missing geometry here, so I have to insert a poly loop here and increase our resolution a bit. Do we need that really? It's sometimes difficult to, because you're so much in detail, and then you lose the sense of what's a good amount of detail and what's too much. Do we even need another cut? Maybe I can just pull out a bit more detail from here and we can live with just what we have. There we go, maybe that's better. Just try to avoid adding unnecessary geometry. And I see we have a loop here. Let's delete that one. So retopology is really a challenge of patience. Interestingly, it doesn't really require a lot of focus at all. I can really listen to like a conference talk while doing this, or like I could be watching a movie while doing this without losing much of my efficiency, really. So that's a little bit of a funny side to it. What can I do here? So here we need a bit more geometry. Let's try to go for something like this to give ourselves more detail. And then everything comes together nicely. Great. Let me see the question by Haga Hong here. I'm new to Blender, so I've been wondering, when we control left click in edit mode to add new vertices, do they automatically snap somewhere like an existing mesh? It's a very good question. Thank you for asking. So let me answer you quickly. Control left mouse click, as you say, creates a new vertex. Now I just turned back to default settings. If I click on a mesh, it does not snap by default. By the way, if you have something selected and you control left click somewhere, it's going to kind of extrude the selection to where you click. If you have, for example, this 3 vertices selected and you click here, it's going to extrude it to here, and it does not by default snap to surfaces. But you have in Blender snapping tools, which is down here. If you click on this magnet, or your shortcut is Shift Tap, you can enable this. You can snap to incremental steps, vertices, edges, faces, and if you press faces in this instance, and you control left click on a surface, it will snap to the surface. But this also goes for transformations now. So if I press G to move the point, it's going to snap to the surface because we have it turned on. If I turn it off and I move it, it's going to go through the surface or outside. It's on the view plane, basically. So, but if I hold down Control while transforming, it will turn temporarily this feature on. So if I have here increment selected and I move it and I press Control, you see it snaps to the grid. If I select face here and I hold Control while moving, it will snap to the surface. So I hope that's answering your question there. And thanks for the comment there, Heel. True, actually. It's not about the details, it's more about whether it reads or not, and less is usually better. I guess the silhouette is really one of the most important things when doing retopology. Like, the silhouette needs to capture the detail. So if I turn this to the side and my topology does not capture the silhouette, I'm in trouble. But you're right, if I can avoid it, I should. For example, if there is like a dent inside that will never show in the contour, I mean, in this case, because it's wrapped around the cylinder, we get to see these details quite strongly. But if there was a flat surface with an indent, sort of, there would not be much meaning in going for that in adding geometry. So maybe I'm doing a bit too much here. Let's see how many vertices we have. Oh wow, we're already at 100. Let's try to reduce that a little. I think we're going a bit too high. And I need to reposition them all here. That's a bit of a struggle that I have when I'm too much in detail. I tend to like lose the feeling for what's too much detail and what's not enough. Reduce that a little bit at least. Let's try to keep it a bit lower from now on. Here I'll be kind of trying the same approach as we did on the other side. Like this. And here, let's continue. How would I texture skin? Well, we need to paint it somewhere, so I haven't looked much into it, and the other part to it would be setting up the proper material settings and shader settings. So Substance Painter would be nice for shaders, but we need to make the textures somewhere, and I don't think it's necessarily the best tool for painting. So you might want to use another tool there for painting. ZBrush is possible, but I'm not entirely sure if that's what you want to use to paint your textures. I think there is, I forgot what it's called. What's the name of that texturing program? But I'm not entirely sure right now. I'm planning to look into it next. Let's remove this detail here, it's a bit too fine. We'll just get it into our normal map to bake it in. Maybe like this. I think this is a bit too dense. Actually, that's fine. Let's do this, and here we can oh well, let's just close it together. Texturing program, Sculptures, ZBrush. Well, no, not really. Well, give me a second to look it up. There is one software that many people use. Was it Mari, maybe? Is that for the movie industry? Or was it Code 3D or something like that? There is a bunch of options, obviously, but Mara is a 3D texture painting software. I don't have experience with them, I just hear these names coming up very often. And I think from what I remember, Mara is like most widely used in the movie industry, but not necessarily in games. And Substance Painter is very much in games, but I forgot if Substance Painter is good at painting. I'm not entirely sure there. But there is still also the option of Code 3D. I'm not entirely sure. Anyways, you have a couple of names there. Feel free to look into that. I want to reduce here a bit more. If we push all of these a bit more to the side, we should be able to capture that without another cut here. Alright, that looks less dense and should still be able to capture the detail. Oh, thanks Stephen for the comment. Looks like you enjoyed the videos. Glad you enjoyed them, and if that's the case, thanks for the comment. Let's see. Along this edge here, I would actually like to keep this an even flow if possible, but actually, let's not get too worked up about that. Just continue here for now. And so I'll try to capture a bit less detail here, because this dent will not show up too much in the silhouette. So maybe just get the peaks of these kind of elevations. And here also this part doesn't show up in the silhouette, so it's a good decision to kind of cut that out of what we were going to capture here. So there we go, starting to connect kind of the details here. Yeah, I think I went a bit too much into detail here. Let's try to avoid that. And this part is actually going to be really tough. The more I work on this, the more I realize how long it's going to take. Let's see if we can reduce our work time a bit here. I'll just go a bit rougher here. Should allow us to speed up our progress a bit. Let's just go for a triangle here. I'm not so afraid of triangles anymore if they make sense, and in this situation I would say it makes sense. Actually, do we need it? No, never mind. It's avoidable. Maybe we'll put it somewhere else though. Actually, no, we can just connect it here. Alright, never mind. But if we run into a situation where adding a triangle is just a good option, I'm not really really concerned about that anymore. Steven is saying, I hope to see some more with the new interface of Blender when it's out. Currently learning Unity code, and it will look over your tutorials again. Oh, thanks a lot. I'm also really looking forward to the new interface. Actually, I wish I could have done this tutorial already in the new user interface, but it seems like the baking tools are still a bit broken. So, unfortunately, that's where it ended. Like, I was switching to cycles to get the baking tools, but for some reason I wasn't able to select my cage. Maybe I was using it wrongly, but I think there was something not working, so we'll see how it turns out. So I'm going on it very roughly now to speed up my progress a little bit here. Let's not connect here. Maybe this is a better option. All right. I don't like the polyflow here very much. I prefer this to go this direction. And we'll close it this way. Yeah, that looks better. Let's see if we're capturing the silhouette properly. So I might do some quick adjustments here based on the silhouette. But we're getting there. So good. Good to see we did some good progress here now. Yeah, I mean, F2, is that an included plugin? Wait a second. Let me check on that. What was it? Isn't there edit somewhere? Mesh F2. Let me give it a try. I'm not too sure about this tool much. Where do I get that again? Maybe you have an advice for me? How can I kind of make use of F2? Blend the plugin, add some functionality to the F key. Oh. Ah. This sort of thing? Oh, cool. I just figured it out. So let's give it a try. If I do this, okay, it adds a new polygon here. If I do this, obviously it fills. Interesting. I'll try this one. Alright, let's go a lot rougher now. I can see the general structure here a lot clearer now. So let's focus on this part first. Oh, okay. I'll start here. I'll just go on the peaks to do this all in a batch, basically. So I have now one vertex on each peak because I definitely want the peaks to show. And it'd be good to have 2 points on top because, let me do this again, just because I want the peaks to from the silhouette to be like not pointy. They should be more rounded. So I'm just going to add this one, this pattern, and finally down here I extrude this to the side, and let's recalculate the normals, position these pieces, and then I'll go for the valleys, and that should give us a very quick and good start to just continue doing the whole side in one go, because we really need to spend less time struggling with the details and move forward. You can, let's see, it has no settings. You can make 2 edge loops, select. Let me try that. So you say something like this, but I know that you can fill this already with F, just like this. But that's not what you mean, right? Let me read that again. You can make 2 edge loops, select a single vertex, and press F repeatedly to fill in the entire thing. Not entirely sure how I should understand that. Oh, a single one. Yeah. As for that, I found out what you mean. So, how does it work again? Well. Wasn't it like this? You can press here and then you get a new point. Wait. Oh, these are not filled in. Oh my god. What's going on? So I go here. Let's just make a nice corner. So you can press here. Oh, that's it, right? I can just continue pressing here. Oh, it depends on where my cursor is. Let me give that another try. So if I press here, it connects to here. Okay, but it only works in this corner. I'll look into that later. It seems interesting. I see. And for the valleys here anyways, I'm just going to add one loop cut, by the way, because these are kind of creases anyways, and the normal maps will capture the shape of the valley, and we won't see it as much in the silhouette, so I can get away with it here. So there we go. So here we have a really clean surface now, so I want to reduce some of my detail here as we don't need it anymore, so I can just create some of these diamonds that will help me get rid of my geometry quite easily and comfortably. So this should be good. Let's see. Just making sure that this peaks and like the peaks and the lowest point in a valley are usually the most important things that you should be kind of taking care of. So mostly focus on those. So let's go. I want to kind of fill this as much as possible in one go. Okay, let's go to the other side here, trying to line it a little bit up with this, kind of the shape of the surface on this side. And we can see that I can either get rid of one more here, or we just cut this edge. I guess cutting the edge here would be better. I wish I had like a smooth tool, smooth on surface, smoothing while my vertices stick to the surface. That would be nice. Good, that's good enough really for this area. I don't see any reason to really continue adding more detail to this part. And there we go. Here we have some more detail to take care of. Good thing that we have a few vertices in place. What shall we do here? I'll just cut it. We're just adding one vertex here. It's nothing to really, we have to take care of that much. And here I see an opportunity to really improve our geometry a bit, so let's delete this edge and the one below. We'll just reshape it a little bit to have less distortions. Good. Should be smoother. Actually, we can do this a little bit later just to keep it clean. Good, that's better. So for this test we might just do one side here, because this process will be repeated on the other side. I want to spare you that. I might do it for myself, but we'll do this part, the color on this one side, and try to bake it from there and see what issues we run into with the double-sided surface and things like that. So let's finish here. I hope we can get away with this. I'm afraid we have to do a bit more better than that, because here is some very fine details, so maybe it's better we actually go for a bit more true to the surface kind of retopology. One good strategy is to find similar surfaces and similar structures in clothes and to do them in a batch process, because if you have to rethink every time how you're going to deal with, well, all these situations, every time you encounter them, you spend a lot of time on just the thinking. But if you can do them similarly, you can do them all at once, so you might be able to save some time in that sort of simplification process. Oh well, turns out I'm not going to do anything fancy here anyways. Maybe this is the best solution here. Oh, see you around, Stephen. Thanks for joining so far. Right, 80% done. We're just going to do one half. Let me just go and turn on the air conditioner for a second. It always keeps turning off. There you go, disadvantages of dorm life. You cannot even control your air conditioner. They're just trying to save energy though. They're not the bad people. But it's just a bit too hot recently. There we go. So recalculate normals is just Control N. Is that really next level? In edit mode, Control N should recalculate normals. Well, anyways. Alright, so for speed's sake, I think we did enough of practice here for now for retopologizing cloth. There's one last thing we need to give it a try, that is the color. So we're just going for this half. Let me just display it separated once so that you can get an idea for where is it? This one will move to 4th layer, this one will move to 3rd layer. So this is our new geometry, so it looks fairly nice. We can already read the shape really well. We have our folds, everything is well preserved. Oh, we're actually quite far below our target, so we have 340 words at this point, and we were aiming for 1000 to 1500 for the entire part. So I think if we finished it, we would roughly hit 1000, and we could even add a bit more detail, so pretty nice. And all I'm going to do now is I'll try to do something with the color, and I think what I'll do here is I'll copy this loop and I'll separate it into separate object, and then hide my previously modeled mesh, and then just focus on the inside, which is really simple. It's basically gotta extrude these down, subdivide that, get that in here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. There we go. Subdivide it again with 2 cuts. Match these locations. Subdivide this here. So for this attempt, I will be attempting to basically capture the normals from inside of the collar, because basically the normals should be the same, but I can imagine that if we kind of shoot our rays outwards, then we'll have less issues with kind of intersections. So here's our strategy for that. Just going to subdivide it once to give ourselves a little bit more square faces here. That's pretty. So now let's unhide everything again. We're going to hide just our high poly mesh. I'll join these two parts together, and all we have to do is to update kind of the seam. Actually, we might it would be nice to give this a little bit of an edge here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Are these all together? Yeah, looks good. I want to give this a little bit of a crease, so what I will do is I will add a loop cut here and slightly move it inside. And I'm not sure if that's a good idea, because we're not being very accurate here with this, but I think it will be troublesome if we don't have like a little bit of a flat surface on top for like adding volume to it later. Good then, there we go. So here's our retopology, and if we give it thickness just to simulate it, solid phi modifier, smooth it all, this is what we would be getting. And if we kind of adapt the thickness to be roughly the same, it would be something like this. It's not really necessary, but I kind of like to have one clean loop cut near an edge for shading. I don't know if that's a bad habit, but it makes it look a bit nicer. Maybe I shouldn't be doing that, really. The normal maps would recalculate that anyways, but yeah, let's not do that. That's a bad habit. We'll get there with the normal maps. Alright, so sorry, Ronaldo, for your question. I don't have anything against like anime style stuff, but for me, really the reason why I like doing anime style projects, and this is kind of probably answering for other people as well, is because I like stories and storytelling. But like recently I've been feeling that the direction where all of this was heading is kind of getting out of hand, so I decided to go with a bit more realistic style these days. And of course I'll be getting back to anime style too, but it will be what should I say, the content will always be focused on creating beautiful characters for storytelling. I just want to clarify that part, and that's the reason why in this stage I don't want to make too much content in that regard, not to attract the wrong audience. Let me just leave it there. Alright, so now next step, let's do normal map baking. I'm just going to save this quickly to my desktop temporarily. We won't need this modifier for now, but we'll need our high resolution mesh, and low resolution mesh. And I'll show you first of all what happens if you just try to bake this into a map. First of all, of course, we need to UV map our mesh, which should be quite straightforward. It's not very complex. We just get it folded up. It's pretty much a piece of cloth. So there we go. This is our kind of UV unmapping. Just pressed U in edit mode, unwrap, and that's pretty much all we need for here. I'll make a new texture. Let's do that. 1048 pixels. And we want to switch to cycles for this because only cycles has at the moment these features that we need with Cage. And we're going to set this to normal. We stick to tangent space, and we select to active. This will allow us to project detail from high resolution mesh that we select first to the low resolution mesh that we select second. And actually we can select multiple objects, I think. Let's try that. The last object that you select has to be the low resolution mesh, and it will kind of shoot a ray through the normal, and you'll see the result. Let's just bake it here. Oh, okay, and yeah, cycles is a bit annoying when it comes to like baking. It wants you to have a texture node in your material, so you have to create a material, you have to go to texture, image texture, and put this somewhere inside of your material, otherwise it won't accept kind of your attempt to bake a normal map here. And so here you see the big issue now that you usually get, kind of the dilemma with why it so far was really difficult to bake normal maps in Blender, because what do you do with this? Everything is kind of like, you know what I mean. This is where cages come into play. And to be honest, I'm not entirely sure yet how cages work, if they have to be a volume, for example. But let me give this a try now. I will select this object and I'll make a copy of this. So here, let's just call this object the cage. I think I know how it works. So here we go now into our bake settings, and we'll select cage and select our cage here. And so now with our cage selected, we'll go in here and kind of extrude, like shrink it outwards. No, not shrink. Which one is it? Pull and push. No. What's to do with that, maybe? Oh yeah, okay. I had to select my pivot point to median point, and then if you go to shrink and fatten, you want this to kind of go back a little bit, so that it does not need to be near the surface anymore, but you must not have parts sticking through. So we can actually go ahead and make this fabric strongly colored, just to, oh wait, this is cycle, so we have to change the color here, I guess. Just give it a strong color so that you can see anything shining through, and then with the cage selected, you can edit it to kind of not have anything show through. But before I put all the time and effort into doing that, let me quickly check if this actually works. So we only have a few spots now that are not shining through, and this part here is obviously a bit messed up, but we'll get there. Select everything, and where's our, not the cage, I need our low poly. We should name these things. Low poly. And now let's bake it again and see if this does improve our result. It's just a flat object, but so what's happening here? This is interesting. So who has a clue? Who has a clue what this could possibly mean? Let's clear this image once, maybe. This is a very confusing result. Let's get a new image going on here. That could be an issue. No clue. Let's try this again. I really like stylized characters. I definitely want to get more into stylized characters. And actually, what I'm doing is not entirely realistic anyways. But, yeah, I'm not very good at it maybe. Well, I'll be getting to that. Okay, this is really strange. Does anybody know why we get such a noisy result? Is that because it's cycle and we need to increase samples or something, or does it have another reason? In the meantime, let me... Or is it because maybe we have a double-sided mesh that we're projecting on? For closed meshes. Yeah, I was kind of thinking about that. Does it have to be a closed mesh? This is a good question. I haven't really thought about that. Let me just edit the cage a little bit here now that we at least have a finished cage. We're getting into the right direction. You can see that we only have in this few spots intersection errors now. So I can just go ahead and close this. I can use proportional editing by pressing O and just do multiple areas at once. That will also help. And just make sure you don't go too far, just go as much as necessary. And so we have this area clean now. The only area that is left that we need to take care of is, well, in that crease below the collar. Here we want to select these two loops, and without this selected, just shrink this again to be normal, and we might want to move this a little bit down so that it's kind of within this crease cleanly. But don't make a huge change, okay? Just like very gently put it into position. Let me check the results here. Yeah, here for example, you want to fix it a little bit. Just make sure it's all nice and not intersecting. These areas you have to give a bit special attention. And here I'm thinking there will be issues with intersection still, because we're still cutting through on our edges, but we'll see how this turns out and how we can solve this. Wait, did I just do the exact opposite of what I want to do? Yeah, looks like it. I can just turn these around though. Not too big of a deal. I get confused. Alright, let's hide our... Let's bring this to another layer. Look at just this. Alright, so here's the issue. This needs to go further down. A bit difficult to do all this. It's such a tiny space. I'll just rotate these parts 180 degrees to get them to flip. Could scale them by -1 as well. Depends on what you want to do. Scale them actually. Alright. And here I don't want these to intersect, so I'm just going to bring them as close as possible somewhere in the middle and hope that this will be right on spot. Okay, now this is clean again. Now we have our cage, which is hopefully well contained within. To go back, no, cycles around is good. Let's make this double-sided for a moment. Right here we have a few things to fix. Right. Now then, let's give it another try. And now that the cage is done, I'm not really thinking that this will have changed much, but oh, wait a second. Maybe we're not allowed to select the cage. Let's hide the cage. I'll select all these objects and select the low poly at last, and let's give it another try. Let's bake this, because maybe it was projecting itself to the cage as well. Oh, maybe that was maybe really it. Maybe it just projected itself to the cage because I had the cage selected. So seems like that was our main issue, and now everything is clean. And we still have some issues here under the color, so that's like the most difficult area, of course. And you see the reason is mainly because we don't need the lobe for now, but you see we still have intersections here between our cage and this high detail geometry, so we need to move this out more, but like we can't go too aggressive. We need to be very careful about it. Maybe intersections between the cage and itself may not be that bad. We just cannot intersect like the high poly mesh on the other end, because then we might include that into our bake. And can we actually change the geometry on our cage? Is that possible? I don't think so, but it would be nice if that was possible. No, I don't think it's possible. Would be kind of stupid. Well, so one thing we could do is, because we're not seeing any artifacts anymore in the visible areas, we could just accept it and live with the fact that we have slightly wrong things like in areas that we can't see. You could also have kind of modeled this in a way that you don't even have this kind of inside part, but then I'm kind of wondering how you would bake them. Anyways, I think that was a good approach, but let's bake this again and see if we get any improvements. And we'll finally just look at how this works out. Okay, well, the issue actually, no, we can't really go with that, because we're going to have this on both sides of the mesh, right? So this is definitely going to show through. So I'm wondering if we can maybe bake this mesh from the other side after all. So we shall give that a try now. So, well, it's a learning process. So select these objects and get them both double-sided. Actually, it's kind of annoying that I can't see them properly. Okay, but I'm going to this is now the low poly mesh. Alright, in order to get it on the other side, I will just do it like this. It's not the nicest way of doing it, but I'm just using shrink and fatten to like push it on the other side of our high poly mesh, Would be nice if we could kind of snap that all together. Or should we just try snapping it to nearest surface on the high poly? Let's try it. Let's get the modifier here. Shrink warp on the high poly. And I'll actually join these two together now. There's no meaning having them separate. So, is that helping us anything? I will delete the other materials. So let's get rid of the cage for a moment. And as long as we don't have any vertices snapping to the inside, should be good. What I could do, well, I separated them now. I could have just kept the outside surface and snapped it to that. Well, never mind then. Okay, but it seems like we have it snapping fairly well into place on the right side. So let's accept that result. Obviously without solid phi, just shrink wrap. Alright, and now we'll try to project the whole thing once again, but from the inside instead of the outside. But I don't think it will be very... maybe we should mix it. Maybe we should actually go ahead and try to make a cut somewhere and to get only these problem areas to project from the other side. That's a better idea. Let's undo a bunch of these things. So before, well, I gotta go back a few more steps. So this is where we started. No, we need to go back more. Okay, wonderful. We can't undo anymore. Went too far. But I can just shrink it back, and we should be very close to what we had originally. Let me just try to do that. Yeah, just mess this up a little bit. So this should be very close to what we had originally. So you can see they all start to match almost at the same time, so that's pretty close to what we had. And so what I can try to do now is I can change the direction of the normals for only the color part and have the normals go into the other direction, so to speak. That is one option. What else can I do? Problem is we will definitely get intersections here because it's a very tiny crease, and if we connect them straight there is no way we can avoid intersections, so we have to go from outside. But we're very likely to get like a very visible step in our result if we just cut this. Well, we gotta try. So I'll go ahead and select this inner region here. This is pretty much the region that we want. Covers most of our problem area. Can take a bit more here. Don't need this one, but we might need this one. This covers it all. Let's make a copy of this mesh, move it to another layer, and this one I'll now go and destroy a little bit. So here's my selection. I'll separate this part. I'll just rip it off and I will push it to the other side, somewhere around here. And so we'll just try to project it from the other side now. That's pretty much what we'll try to do. And for our cage, let's see. The cage obviously needs to have the same changes applied to it. So let's try to get the same selection. And we had this one and this one selected. So that's pretty much what we had there. And I will split this off and make sure that it's on the other side. Here we have less to worry about. I'll just make it a bit bigger. Don't need to go that far. Just manually fix this upper end. And then we'll just give it another try. And there was just one part here that we can probably fix. That is here, this little edge. Just go ahead and raise this a bit higher, and we can get rid of that part. Alright, now let's bake it again and we'll just see what happens. And if the map generates properly, we will be able to just use it for the clean mesh that we still have a copy of on the other layer. So, man, I haven't been reading the comments at all. I was very focused. Let's bake this in the meanwhile. Okay, so the issue here, as we learned, is we are not allowed to have the cage selected. So deselect the cage. Try that again. And I think we forgot to switch our normals, so we have to go back and switch our normals here. Let's see. This is the low poly mesh. Let's display our normals. Where was it? View, in edit mode. Here. So for this part, or we can just go to disable double-sided as well. Yeah, so we want this to show in the other direction. So I'm just going to select this and reverse the normals. And for the cage, I think I should do the same thing. Yeah, so let's reverse the normals here and hide the cage. Let's give that another go here. And there will be some artifacts, as I can see already. But let's see how to turn that. Yeah, so this is really the thing that will always. It is not a good solution. Let me say that right away. It is not a good solution. But I really don't have an idea right away how to solve it. If you guys have an idea, let me know. But I'm just going to go with this result for now, and I'll map it to our low poly mesh to show us at least what our result would have been. So let's go to Blender, Render, GLSL. Let's add a light. Sunlight. Let's go to textured here. Let's give it a Blender material, and we'll add an image texture. A normal map. And so to apply normal map in Blender, you have to check here, of course, that it is a normal map, and you have to go here, and as influence we don't want color, but we want normal. And you can see that our results, first of all, are very nice where our mesh is clean. So you can see that all of this is very, very nicely detailed, even though we only have a few hundred polygons and vertices, I mean. Absolutely beautiful detail. The silhouette is working pretty well as well. We could have done that just around the whole mesh. However, now on the downside of things, this color area was after all still a challenge, and I was not able to bake the normals properly. You can see that this is quite messed up and it doesn't look very nice. And let's just try one last thing. I'll add a solid V modifier as we talked about before. And this should give the whole thing a volume. I don't know exactly how it behaves here on these edges. I don't think it's nice on the edge. Probably. Actually, it seems to be working fairly well. Let's display our normal map as color information for a second to see what it does here. I think it's just going to stretch the normal information around the corner, which is not really a good idea, but seems to be working. At least we're getting the details. Should this maybe be inverted? I have to wait. Let me try something. I'm just curious. So inside we'll have an different material. How do you do that? Oh, okay. Maybe because we don't have another material yet. Alright, okay. So there we remove the material from the inside. Let me add the same material again, but we'll change it a little bit. Did that work? Give me a second. I think Blender wants us to save this image. Now we can open it, and now we have it in here. I'm just wondering if this maybe is in the wrong direction, if this actually doesn't work by chance. So let me just get the light set up. What if we inverse the direction of this normal map? Yeah, it looks like we have to actually invert the direction of the normal map to work for the inside. So if we want to get this double-sided, we have to first bake a nice normal map, then give this a thickness, and then apply the inverted normal map to the backside. Then everything looks pretty nice and sweet, and only places like the color are not very easy. Manuel is saying, I usually retopologize the entire mesh before doing any baking. Yeah, I would do the same. It's just a test, basically. It doesn't have really a purpose, this object, so I did it just to move forward. But what do you guys think? How would you approach this issue with the color? The issue is that, let me draw it for you with the pencil here. So imagine you have a fold like this. Wait, I need to draw this a bit more easy to understand. So there we go. So we have a fold. And this fold is actually curved. So if you think about these two lines representing kind of a cut through here, this plane, and then we have like here point, and here's our next point, then you'll find that if we connect these points, it's impossible to avoid kind of intersections. So I can either just go ahead and add a lot of resolution here, or we can just not go as far into this channel at all and stay like far away from anything. What do you guys think? I might just go ahead and experiment with that myself as well later on, but just give me your thoughts maybe. And with 2 hours reached, so that's a good time for the stream anyways. And because that's the biggest issue really, that's what keeps me from doing like many parts with cloths in particular, because cloths have a bunch of complex folds that will have intersections, and there is a solution needed for that. Well, anyways, Let me know in the comments if you have an idea. So there we go. Let's compare this to our high resolution mesh side by side. Here's the high resolution mesh. Need to update the material. There we go. So if you look from here, there's hardly any difference, right? So that looks like a very good bake for our map. We don't have any problems for this even area. The only problem really we get is for this color area. Make it two disconnected planes and bake them independently. I tried. Actually, true. If we really separated the entire thing cleanly and just baked them separately, we would have probably fixed it. That's a good idea. What about if there is folds that are very much stacked together, and I guess in that case we would just trace the visible parts of the folds. Alright, I'm just thinking out loud here, but I think I'm still here with my audio. Can you guys not hear me? I think it's fine. Alright, thanks guys for joining the stream. I think you enjoyed this experiment here. I think we learned all together how to do clean retopology on objects. There we go. We turned this into this. I think we got a really nice result, and I hope you learned something from that. So I'll be posting this video later on. Let me know in the comments if there is anything else you want to learn or see. I will kind of keep doing these streams for the next time being, because this is a lot easier for me to deal with and gives me a lot of experience and allows me to learn a lot while also sharing my knowledge at the same time, instead of spending lots of time on making educational content but kind of missing out on study opportunities for myself. So this is a good way for me to do that. Hope you enjoyed it, and as I said, just let me know in the comments if you want to know anything else. So see you guys later.